Hey, I hope you guys are doing good today. We are going to be watching Madly Mesozoic. I feel like that word's kind of hard for me, but this was suggested to me, and it's Could Orcas Survive the Mesozoic? And I kind of thought this would be kind of cool. I don't really know a whole lot about dinosaurs, so um, I figured, we could maybe dabble in some dino history here and there. So, but thank you for the suggestion. I really appreciate it. I'm sorry it took me so long to get to it, but we are here now. Um, but this seems kind of cool though. If you do get a chance, I'd appreciate if you can leave a like and subscribe. It helps me out a bunch. And I will have Madly Mesozoic's video linked in my description below. So be sure to give him a subscribe, watch his videos, all that good stuff. He seems like he is very, very knowledgeable. So I am looking forward to this. All right, let's get it.
Ladies and gentle swords, Mesozoic maniacs,
Aw.
and dinosaur dorks. Welcome to Assessing Survival, the series where we take animals, people, and fictional creatures and place them in different periods throughout history, as well as
Mm.
some places in fiction. You guys voted, and in today's video, we will be placing the killer whale into the Mesozoic. If you'd like to be a part of deciding what the next video will be about, subscribe and don't forget to keep an eye on the community tab of the channel. Polls are normally posted a few days after the video is uploaded. Just like in our previous episodes, before we put our subjects into the Mesozoic, we have to determine what period and time frame of the Mesozoic we'll be putting our orcas into, not only to see where they'll be best suited for the environment, but also to see what ecosystem would be the most interesting to speculate on. We're going to start with the Triassic period. The Triassic period really set the stage for aquatic ecosystems for the rest of time. Animals like ichthyosaurs, nothosaurus, and early plesiosaurs carved the path for animals that had adapted on land to make their way back into the water. Tenmodontosaurus, a predatory ichthyosaur, was roughly the same size as an orca and fed on
Okay, these two kind of are closely somewhat related size-wise. Some of these dinosaurs are absolutely terrifying looking. Like, part of me is kind of glad that maybe some of these aren't around because I mean, this would. Can you imagine running into something like this? Like
early
something that looks like this in the water? I don't know. This would this would scare me a little bit.
plesiosaurs carved the path for animals that had adapted on land to make their way back into the water. Tenmodontosaurus, a predatory ichthyosaur, was roughly the same size as an orca and fed on most anything it could, but it wasn't really adapted for hunting larger prey like Shonisaurus or Shostosaurus. These animals, as adults, as far as we
Oh
know, don't
wow.
have any predators other than maybe each other. In my opinion, in terms of the trophic systems, orcas would absolutely clean house. The only real threat comes from
Oh.
Tenmodontosaurus, which likely wouldn't even attack orcas once they figure out they're pod animals. The supercontinent Pangaea,
Okay. So far, Orquids are are doing okay. They are doing okay.
which likely wouldn't even attack orcas once they figure
Fair
out
enough.
they're pod animals. The supercontinent Pangaea
Yeah, pod animals are kind of scary in that aspect, I think. I don't think you want any of that smoke.
which likely wouldn't even attack orcas
Even
once
these
they figure
guys.
out they're pod animals. The supercontinent Pangaea made it harder for the ocean to be as diverse as it is today. Coastal waters and reefs really only existed around the perimeter of the continent, creating more than 16,000 miles of open,
Oh.
desolate ocean. Like I normally bring up in previous episodes, the Triassic was really hot. Ocean temperatures averaged about 40 degrees Celsius, which is hotter than the hottest parts of our oceans.
This is 104? Oh my God. Yeah, that's like that. Ooh, yeah, that is hot. That is warm. That is some hot water. Oof.
Like the Persian Gulf and inner Gulf of Mexico, which orcas today tend to stay away from. However, orcas are pretty adaptable, and maybe after a generation or two, they could become much leaner to compensate for higher temperatures. I believe
Could they overheat if they were in that hot of water? I guess what's like the average water temperature that they typically enjoy or prefer or survive the best in?
maybe
I have
after a
no clue.
generation or two, they could become much leaner to compensate for higher temperatures. I believe orcas would do too well in the Triassic. The ecosystem is pretty much entirely different from their current environment, and likely isn't able to support a hyperactive predator like the killer whale. The Jurassic period. The Jurassic continues the trend of the development and diversification of marine reptiles in the ocean. In the Jurassic, we see plesiosaurs and pliosaurs take over the role of apex predators in the oceans over ichthyosaurs. There is a lot of debate on just how big pliosaurs actually became in the Jurassic. Most solid estimate we have for the largest pliosaur is Pliosaurus funki, which is estimated to reach just about 12.5 meters or 42 feet at upper estimates,
That's still that's kind of huge. 42 feet?
which is
That's pretty big.
estimated to reach just about
That's a big
12.5
boy.
meters or 42 feet at upper estimates. When put against an average orca, 23 to 27 feet, this really isn't all that impressive, especially considering orcas hunt whales much larger than themselves on a regular basis. So despite
That is also a very good point. That is true. They kind of take out a lot of things that are significantly bigger than them.
especially considering orcas hunt whales much larger than themselves on a regular basis. So despite their size and ferocious appearance, many of the top predators of the Jurassic oceans would be easy meals for orcas. The Jurassic was much more biodiverse and had a more suitable temperature for orcas than the Triassic, but honestly, I think the Jurassic would be a boring place to put them. I think it would just be too easy for them. The Cretaceous period. The Cretaceous is
So we gotta find like where it's gonna be hard mode for them or more entertaining, or I don't know if entertaining is the word. Challenging, maybe more challenging for them.
is the most well-documented and, as far as we know, most diverse aquatic ecosystem of all the Mesozoic. It will also be the most challenging for orcas because of the advent of predators like mosasaurs. Ocean surface temperatures in the Cretaceous were pretty uniformly averaged around 30 to 35 degrees Celsius. Though still pretty hot, this is much better than the Triassic. The Cretaceous also has a lot more areas the orca can thrive in as opposed to the Triassic. If we look at a map of the globe in the Cretaceous, it's more or less just like our map, but with much
Yeah,
higher water levels.
it does look pretty close to like how we are today. So they could. So does that mean they could potentially move around more and have more of an area to live?
This means a lot more coastal waters and reefs where marine life tends to thrive. For these reasons, I believe the Cretaceous would be the most interesting and the most familiar era to place them in. We'll be taking
Hmm.
a breeding population of orcas, which I'm estimating to be about 8 pods of 5 to 10 individuals, and dispersing them throughout the oceans of the Cretaceous globe. This is the first assessing survival, and maybe the only one, where we'll actually be handicapping the subject animal. Our
Oh.
subject orcas will be the smallest known variant of orca whales, and that is the offshore orca whale, whose maximum length tends to be 22 feet. I'll be using 5 different categories to assess the orca's ability to survive. These categories will then be added up for a final assessment score. These categories are environment suitability, advantages, disadvantages, food sources, and competition, as well as a section at the end of the video where we speculate how they might evolve and adapt to their environment going forward. So without any further ado, let's get into the categories. Environment suitability. Now, we mostly went over this, but I'd like to reiterate that orcas will be perfectly comfortable living in the Cretaceous Ocean. Killer whales inhabit all parts of the ocean, excluding very deep open ocean and particularly hot areas. Orcas that inhabit the polar regions are even known to quote-unquote vacation to tropical regions during the coldest times of the year. So moving our
Oh.
orcas to the Cretaceous period will
I didn't realize that they could travel like in such, because I think that those temperatures would be kind of drastic in between them. So I guess it's no big deal. I'm assuming.
tropical regions during the coldest times of the year. So moving our orcas to the Cretaceous period will essentially be like your grandparents in Colorado moving to Florida. Environment suitability, 5 out of 5. Advantages. Now, orcas have a plethora of advantages for us to go over, so this is going to take a minute. The first advantage is their size. Orcas, even on the smaller end, are quite large. The offshore orcas in the North Pacific are on average 21 feet or 6.5 meters long, and
21 feet. I mean they look like they're big. They look like they are large, for sure.
shore orcas in the North Pacific are on average 21 feet or 6.5 meters long and can weigh anywhere between 65 to 12,000 pounds or
Oh my
3 to
gosh.
5,000 kilograms. This is a lot of weight to push around, especially in a
Yeah.
group. That makes your average
How many are usually in a pod? Because I mean, I guess even if you had 6 of them, they can definitely probably do some damage. Like they're gonna be able to probably maybe conquer whatever they want. Maybe I would think.
or 3 to 5,000 kilograms. This is a lot of weight to push around, especially in a group. That makes your average pod of orcas around 40 to 50,000 pounds of whale. Even when
That's a
considering the
lot.
sizes of all marine life in history, this is pretty big. Orca pods can consist of anywhere between 2 and 15 individual whales.
Oh, okay. 2 to 15. okay, so we were at like the max end of that 15 of these, like just coming at you. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how much you could tank this. It doesn't seem like there's a whole lot that can. Doesn't seem like there's a high survival rate in that.
This is pretty big. Orca pods can consist of anywhere between 2 and 15 individual whales. In rarer cases, pods will consist of almost 200 individuals, typically for
Oh
temporary
man.
social interaction, mating, or seasonal availability of food. This is in contrast to the predators of the late Cretaceous, who, as far as we know, didn't live in any type of social group at all, and if they did, it wasn't nearly this size. Another advantage
Oh, so they could just go pick them off like it's nothing then, I would assume. Especially if they don't if they weren't social type of animals. So maybe at the most they'd have like one friend, but then they're solo the rest of the time. That's probably not safe. They're probably not safe.
in any type of social group at all, and if they did, it wasn't nearly this size. Another advantage is their intelligence. Orcas, dolphins, and cetaceans in general are
Oh
without a
yeah.
doubt the most intelligent animals on the planet behind
Yep.
human beings. Orcas sport the second largest brain in the animal kingdom behind sperm whales. Orcas are known for their complex and coordinated hunting strategies. For instance, they work together to create waves that knock seals off of ice floes, herd fish into tight balls for more efficient feeding, flipping sharks over to knock them out before eating specifically their liver, and when
Oh my
hunting larger
gosh.
cetaceans, they will often first attack the whale's fins and tail fluke to immobilize the whale. They are capable of teaching these things to younger orcas as well as other pods.
That is so like impressive that they can teach that to their babies and then that's how they all operate. They're just the one like solid unit. That's actually really, really impressive.
We know this firsthand because there is an increasing number of orcas attacking and disabling boat rudders, meaning they're likely telling all their friends how to do it. Killer whales in South Africa, specifically
Is that what they practice on or boat rudders? Oh man.
meaning they're likely telling all their friends how
That's
to
a
do it.
bad day
Killer
though.
whales in South Africa specifically target the liver of great white sharks. We don't know why they do this, but presumably, shark liver tastes very good to them. Orcas also use a sophisticated system of vocalization and echolocation to converse with each other. Orcas are also very emotionally intelligent. They are very tuned into the feelings of their fellow pod members as well as other animals. Okay, that's as much as you're gonna get out of me for their intelligence.
They are very smart. They are smart cookies. So, so far, I mean, they got 5 out of 5 on both things so far, so they're looking good. They're looking good.
Food sources. To put it simply, everything is on the menu for the killer whale. There's no animal in the oceans of the Cretaceous that I don't see orcas being able to take down, but let's go over some of these prey items and figure out what might be their prey of choice. Ammonites, plesiosaurs, fish, sharks, seabirds, smaller mosasaurs, and sea turtles. Put it simply, orcas will have a field day with sea life of the Cretaceous. None of these animals I just mentioned
It's just gonna be one big sea buffet for them. They're gonna be able to have whatever they want.
Put it simply, orcas will have a field day with sea life of the Cretaceous. None of these animals I just mentioned have any chance of fighting back against a pod of orcas. Just like orcas today, I imagine that orcas in the Cretaceous would also have their own preferred prey from pod to pod and individual to individual. Some pods may prefer to hunt ammonites and sharks, while others may prefer going after marine reptiles. Food sources, 4.5 out of 5.
I think that's
Disadvantages. Now,
fair.
there's a reason I saved disadvantages for after the food sources category. This is because orcas have an incredibly high metabolism and appetite. Your average orca will eat almost 300 pounds of food per day. That's hundreds of thousands of calories on a daily basis. Now, the reason
That's a lot of food. Could they could they essentially eat too much and there wouldn't be anything left? You know, like if their food,
100 pounds of
could
food
that
per
be a
day.
problem
That's
that they
hundreds of
run
thousands
into?
of calories on a daily basis. Now, the reason I see this as a disadvantage is because we don't know if the Cretaceous ocean can support an appetite of this magnitude, as even predators like
Hmm.
Mosasaurus likely only needed to eat half as much as a single orca, as they are reptiles and have much slower metabolisms. My concern for the orcas in the Cretaceous is that they may very well overhunt and end up inadvertently starving themselves and disrupting the ecosystem. Another
Right, right.
disadvantage they have is maturation and gestation. Orca whales take on average 17 months to gestate in their mother's womb and reach reproductive maturity anywhere between 8 and 13 years, continuing to grow for 25 years. Females can only give
I didn't realize they grew for 25 years. Holy crap. That is, I mean, that's just like people. That's damn. I had no idea about that.
anywhere between 8 and 13 years, continuing to grow for 25 years. Females can only give birth to a single calf, and will often wait 3 to 5 years before mating again, but can wait as much as 10 years. Mammals in general take much longer than birds.
I'm I can't blame her, if she wanted to wait in between. This seems like a whole commitment. This is like real parenthood and like the human world even.
Before mating again, but can wait as much as 10 years. Mammals in general take much longer than birds and reptiles to grow. Mosasaurs and plesiosaurs also gave live birth, but likely gave birth to more than one individual. They also likely
Mm,
matured much faster. Disadvantages 4 out of 5. Now for the competition
I think 4 out of 5 is fair. That seems like a fair score to me.
category. There are 3 large predators that come to mind in the late Cretaceous oceans. The first one is Elasmosaurus. Elasmosaurus is a sizable plesiosaur, reaching almost 43 feet at higher estimates. But most of this length is of course in its neck. This marine reptile is very well adapted for hunting and eating fish. Their small, unassuming heads are hypothesized to trick their prey into thinking they are much smaller than they really are. The neck of an
Oh,
Elasmosaurus is a serious weak point, and with a bite force on par with that of saltwater crocodiles, an orca could easily snap the neck of these animals and instantly kill them. Though plesiosaurs likely cared for their young and lived in family groups, they're just too vulnerable to something like an orca. The second animal is
I would
Cratoxyrhina.
think
Coming in
so.
at 26 feet, this shark is a very formidable predator. Bigger than our average orca, taking one of these sharks down could be a challenge for an individual orca, but not a pod. However, there are a number of sharks that tend to live together in groups for safety and ease of feeding, though they lack the social cohesion of marine mammals. Even great whites have recently been observed traveling across the Atlantic in a group, which pretty much goes against everything we knew about them previously. If Cratoxyrhina lives and travels in groups like modern sharks, they could genuinely give orcas a reason for pause. Do I think if we were to put them in an arena and force them to fight that they would come close to winning against orcas? No. Chances are, if orcas wanted to eat a Cratoxyrhina, they would isolate it from the larger group and gang up on it to take it down. However, this is still a dangerous predator, and the orcas will have to be careful about how they dispatch them.
So could this one be like a toss-up almost where it's be maybe like situational where the sharks, if they were in kind of like their own small pod of their own, could possibly stand a chance against the orcas as opposed to just the one, but maybe it's like more situational where the shark could potentially have like a leg up on them.
I think our orca whales would sooner go after easier prey than approach a group of these sharks. But if
That
the
would
other
make
options are
sense.
slim, the Cratoxyrhina remains a possible meal. And last but certainly not least is Mosasaurus hoffmanni, coming in at an average of 42 feet long.
Well, that's a
Hoffman's
big one.
mosasaur was the apex predator of the Cretaceous ocean. This ambush predator dominated its ecosystem by feeding on ammonites, fish, plesiosaurs, and other mosasaurs. However, when orcas are added into the mix, this massive reptile may no longer be the top dog. Orca whales are more than capable of taking down even blue whales with enough pod members and effort. Even at its higher estimates of 57 feet long, Mosasaurus simply doesn't have the size and power to deter a pod of orcas. Though let's not count the reptile out just yet. Let's go over exactly why Hoffman's mosasaur was so successful in its environment. The hunting behavior of this mosasaur was likely similar to that of modern crocodiles. This animal would sit in darker waters in the depths and quickly accelerate up to 30 miles an hour in a sudden burst of speed and catch their prey by
Ah,
surprise. They likely couldn't
that's that's a pretty smart hunting tactic for sure. And you got that like burst of speed. Heck yeah, they must be eating good then,
up to 30 miles
or must have been eating good.
an hour in a sudden burst of speed and catch their prey by surprise. They likely couldn't sustain these speeds for very long. Even if they were warm-blooded reptiles, their
I kind of like their face in this one. They look kind of cute.
eyes. They likely couldn't
They
sustain
look
these
kind of
speeds for
cute.
very long. Even
I
if they
like
were
them.
warm-blooded reptiles, their metabolism weren't as complex as that of orcas. Maintaining high speeds for more than a few minutes would burn an incredible amount of energy that the Mosasaurus just doesn't have. A pod of orcas could easily run down and tire these marine reptiles and take them out. But like the
Oh yeah,
Cratoxyrhina, this
probably,
is
huh?
still an incredibly dangerous predator and could very suddenly dispatch an orca in a sudden burst of speed and power. Mosasaurs had an estimated
Hmm.
bite force of around 13,000 to 16,000 pounds per square inch. This is definitely enough.
Yeah, that's a pretty powerful bite. Their best bet would just to probably be able to maybe ambush a few orcas, and then they could maybe survive it.
Of around 13,000 to 16,000 pounds per square inch. This is definitely enough to kill an orca pretty quickly. Orcas have strong bonds with their pod members, And once they realize the danger of hunting a Hoffman's mosasaur, I think they would sooner steer clear of these marine reptiles than risk losing a member of their pod. Orcas will most assuredly go after younger and smaller mosasaurs, but an adult Mosasaurus hoffmanni is not worth the risk. Competition 4.5 out of 5.
4.5 out of 5. I think that's pretty good. Yeah,
Mosasaurus hoffmanni is not worth the risk. Competition 4.5 out of
that
5.
that seems
Final
fair.
assessment score is 9.2 out of 10. This should come as no surprise.
I feel like that's a pretty good score. That's a pretty good score, I would say, because I feel like there's a lot of dinosaurs that look awfully dangerous, and probably a lot of our animals today would be snacks. So I
Final
think if you
assessment score
like so a 9.2, that I would say that's pretty good. That I would yeah, pretty good.
is 9.2 out of 10. This should come as no surprise. Orca whales are the epitome of an aquatic predator. No animal is better adapted for dominating the ocean than these cetaceans, but in the Cretaceous they could be too much for their new environment. Though it's more likely that the animals around them would evolve to compensate for their disruption of the environment, let's speculate on how orcas may evolve and change to better balance this new trophic system,
Oh, okay.
just for fun. Speculative evolution. Bigger isn't always better. Orcinus tachyoptera, the swift-winged orca, or Dalcas for short. In just a couple million years
Doka.
leading up to the KT
I like that.
extinction, our original population of orcas has become much smaller to compensate for their extreme appetites, allowing them to maintain their lifestyle without decimating the ecosystem. They resemble a mix of bottlenose dolphins and belugas while maintaining their unique pattern. Falcons no longer hunt such prey like Elasmosaurus and Mosasaurus, but rather they mostly eat ammonites, fish, and smaller marine reptiles. Their teeth have
Okay.
become much more blunt and sturdy to allow them to easily crack open the shells of ammonites and mollusks. The average Dalca comes in at a weight of 1,300 pounds and a length of 12 feet. The intelligence of these animals has remained proportionate to their body size, meaning they are just as intelligent, if not more. An interesting aspect of their behavior as a result of this is the use of tools. Falcons use the shells of other creatures as weapons, toys, and shovels. They use the flatter shells for shoveling through sand, oftentimes to find mollusks or just to have fun. They use sharper, pointier shells, like those of belemnites, almost like a sword punch for their snout. Falcons will use this against larger predators like Mosasaurus to have better chances in an encounter with them, but will also use them in encounters with other descendants of orcas, which brings us to our next speculative evolution. Maybe bigger is better. Venetracinus solus, the lone hunting orca, or the
Mm,
venator whale for short.
okay.
Another way our orcas could evolve to fit a niche more balanced with their
I like that he's doing this. This is kind of interesting. Like if they could evolve into something that would be more suitable for the time period, that's actually kind of cool.
ecosystem is foregoing their
It's
large
like a very creative way to look at animals we have today and kind of compare them to dinosaurs like that.
Another way our orcas could evolve to fit a niche more balanced with their ecosystem is foregoing their large pods. The venator whale has evolved to live a lifestyle that's a mix of sperm whales and their reptilian contemporaries, the mosasaur. While females and calves continue to live in pods, though in much smaller numbers than orcas, bull males tend to live mostly solitary lifestyles. The venator whale has become quite a bit larger now that their kills are not shared among pod members. These large toothed whales reach lengths of 45 to 50 feet, or 14 to 15 meters. Not nearly as big as today's sperm whales, or the Miocine's Leviathan, but still on par with mosasaurs and much larger than orcas. These animals prefer hunting large marine reptiles like plesiosaurs and Hoffman's mosasaur, but also eat things like fish and ammonites when they can't find enough food. Sometimes they even prey on their cousins, the Dalca, though this isn't common. Their once massive dorsal fins have now slimmed down, as a whale of this size with such a massive dorsal fin would be very prone to being rolled over by strong currents. We observe this in sperm and blue whales today. This fin is
Oh
likely to
yeah.
become much smaller as the years go on. They have also evolved a much larger sonar melon so that they can communicate with other whales and locate prey from a much greater distance. Much like sperm whales, these whales produce a clicking noise that is almost enough to rupture the eardrums of most creatures within a certain distance. These whales are very few and far between, often not running into another of their species for hundreds of miles.
This one seems like it'd be like a little too OP. I think this one's too OP.
With the advent of the KT extinction, marine reptiles were all wiped out. We don't know exactly why the impact on the surface affected large marine life in the ocean in such a way, but our best guess is that the change in the atmosphere also affected the ocean, acidifying it to an incredible degree, disrupting trophic systems from the bottom up, making it much harder for larger animals to survive. Luckily, the descendants of our more dolphin-sized Orcinus tachyoptera just barely scraped through to the Cenozoic era. But now, there are so many niches that are wide open and ready to be filled by our orcas. This, of course, will suspend the need for protocetaceans to evolve in the
Oh
first place.
wow.
because paradoxically, their descendants have already done it. Big boots to fill. Balenodontus orca, the baleen-toothed orca. In both the Cretaceous and Paleogene, there are no large filter or suction-feeding animals that we know of. There may have been something like a basking or whale shark, but nothing like today's baleen whales or the large ichthyosaurs of the Triassic. The descendants of the Dalkas go on to evolve to fill this empty niche. By the end of the Eocene, the first filter-feeding descendants of orcas emerged. Balenodontus orca, or the baleen orca, is a filter/suction-feeding whale that has evolved convergently to our modern baleen whales, though their baleen plates are a bit more primitive and still in the works compared to our baleen whales. They have very short dorsal fins like modern whales, long powerful tails.
Wait, what did he say? Please excuse my third grade art abilities. I think this looks fine. This looks fine to me. This is like, I mean, I see it and I can understand what I'm looking at, especially for somebody who has uh very limited knowledge. So I think he did fantastic.
Baleen whales. They have very short dorsal fins like modern whales, long powerful tails for efficient travel, as well as longer flippers like that of a humpback whale, which they use to defend themselves against predators. They weigh an astounding 100,000 pounds and reach a maximum length of
This
72
would
feet.
be
And
very,
no, I
very,
didn't make it bigger than a blue whale, simply because every
very
paleontologist and their
large.
dog wants to find the next biggest animal on Earth, and it's just not
I guess that's true too, huh? That is a good point. This is like a small tank though.
simply because every paleontologist and their dog wants to find the next biggest animal on Earth, and it's just not gonna happen. Respect Big Blue, baby. The baleen orca, of course, feeds on plankton, krill, and small fish. They have a large ventral pouch, which they use to suck up as much water and prey as possible, and expel the water while retaining the prey items. Unlike modern whales, the baleen orca has retained its sonar melon, allowing them to have unparalleled echolocation abilities. They also have retained their incredible intelligence and still live in large pods. They live in pods of anywhere between 3 and 8 individuals. They have
Ooh, that'd be really beneficial for them probably. They'd probably be really safe like this.
and still live in large pods. They live in pods of anywhere
I
between
would
3 and
think.
8 individuals. They have impressive emotional intelligence and are in tune with the feelings and needs of their pod members. They use their great intelligence and their large bodies to coordinate and push large pockets of krill into each other, making feeding much easier for the whole pod. With cetaceans arriving onto the scene in the Cenozoic much earlier than in our normal timeline, the ecosystem of the ocean is likely to change and evolve in a vastly different way. Perhaps cetaceans will occupy even more niches than they did before, or maybe they'll actually end up being less abundant, no matter how
Do you think animals now, like 100 years from now, will be different, or do you think they'll be similar to what we have today? Or do you think there'd be like weird evolutions that would happen, or what would have to happen to have them be affected in that way? I guess I don't know. Now I feel like I have so many questions. This is a good video though.
it goes though. I know everyone is going to have a whale of a time. Thank you guys for tuning in to this episode of Assessing Survival. If you liked the episode, be sure to click the like button and leave a comment about what you'd like to see next. Also, don't forget to subscribe and keep an eye on the community tab on the channel, or join the Discord and come chat with me and some other folks. Links for the Discord as well as the Patreon are in the description. I'll send you guys out with some 3D renderings of the bears from the speculative evolution section
Oh
of the
my
last
god.
video by Josiba, a very talented member of our Discord. See you next time.
Oh, they look crazy. These look really good though. These look terrifying. Well, that one looks good. I thought this was a great video. Very, very interesting. I do love how he does this and how he kind of tries to find like the right place to put them and then like kind of tries to figure out like how they would be based on how they are today. And this is a great video. Very, very interesting. Um, I feel like I might have to go watch this again on my own because I definitely don't know a whole lot about dinosaurs in general. So I feel like a lot of information got thrown at me at once. So I might have to go rewatch this. But this was fantastic. Loved it. Very, very, very interesting. I love this approach too and this kind of idea of um, seeing how these animals would do. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. I really appreciate you guys being here. Be sure to go and give Mady Mesozoic a subscribe, watch his videos, like his videos, all that good stuff because these are really good. These are really, really well done. I really enjoyed these. So be sure to go give him lots of support. But that's gonna do it for me. I hope you guys have a great day and I will see you in the next one.